Okay, so we've got another 40, we've got still some more time, so why don't we do some more different types of meditation. So that's the breath meditation side. And we can also practice some what they call mettā meditation. So mettā means goodwill, and basically it comes with a recognition. We can actually try, maybe we can try doing a different meditation posture this time. So there's 4 meditation postures. One is sitting, which is the most common. The other is standing, the other is walking, and the fourth is lying down. So it's been after lunch and people might be feeling sleepy. So we can actually try doing some standing meditation, and it's pretty straightforward. You can just stand up. All right. And by the way, if any meditation period you feel like doing standing meditation, you can. There's no, it's all very relaxed. And so then what we want is to have our feet kind of firmly planted. And then we would look about 3 feet in front of us and close our eyes. But I'll just do a brief description of this meditation first. So this type of meditation, there's 4 of them. One is limitless loving kindness or goodwill. Another one's limitless compassion. Another one's limitless empathetic joy. And the 4th one's limitless equanimity. So what we actually learn to do with this type of meditation is to expand our mind. So it's said to result in what's called the mahagatang chittang, which means the enlarged mind. So basically in the same way you'd kind of flex your arm, you just imagine expanding your consciousness all the way to the ends of the universe and beyond, basically infinitely. And then we do that for each direction and wish all beings in all those directions happiness. And the recognition for mettā is important, is that wishing all beings happiness doesn't mean that we wish that if they're doing something bad, that they get better at that, you know? So if they're kind of like a dictator, they have a longer life as a dictator. You know, but it comes from a recognition that true happiness comes from putting the right causes into place. So what we really wish for is that all beings learn to put the right causes into place to be truly happy. And this method is the same for all of them. It's for, we spread infinitely with mettā, and then karuna, mudita, upekkā. Okay? So we can close our eyes, look about 3 feet in front of us. And we can spread thoughts of goodwill to our right-hand side. May all beings to my right be happy and at ease. May they put in place the causes necessary to be happy and at ease. And we can make our minds infinite, can make them unbounded, all the way to the ends of the universe and beyond, in every dimension. May all beings to my right be happy and at ease. Okay, and can spread thoughts of goodwill to our right-hand side and our left-hand side. May all beings to my right and my left be happy and at ease. May they put in place the causes necessary to be happy and at ease. And we can make our minds infinite, can make them unbounded, all the way to the ends of the universe and beyond, in every dimension. May all beings to my right and my left be happy and at ease. Okay, and we can spread thoughts of goodwill to our right, to our left, and in front. May all beings to my right, my left, and in front be happy and at ease. May they put in place the causes necessary to be happy and at ease. And we can make our minds infinite, can make them unbounded, all the way to the ends of the universe and beyond. In every dimension, may all beings to my right, my left, and in front be happy and at ease. Okay, and can spread thoughts of goodwill to our right, to our left, in front, and behind, in all four directions. May all beings in all four directions be happy and at ease. May they put in place the causes necessary to be happy and at ease. And we can make our minds infinite, can make them unbounded, all the way to the ends of the universe and beyond. In every dimension, may all beings in all four directions be happy and at ease. Okay, and we can spread thoughts of goodwill to our right-hand side, our left-hand side, in front, behind, and above. May all beings in all four directions and above be happy and at ease. May they put in place the causes necessary to be happy and at ease. And we can make our minds infinite, can make them unbounded, all the way to the ends of the universe and beyond. In every dimension, may all beings in all four directions and above be happy and at ease. And can spread thoughts of goodwill to our right-hand side, to our left-hand side, in front, behind, above, below, all around in every direction, everywhere. May all beings all around in every direction, everywhere, be happy and at ease. May they put in place the causes necessary to be happy and at ease. And we can make our minds infinite, can make them unbounded, all the way to the ends of the universe and beyond. In every dimension, may all beings all around everywhere be happy and at ease. Okay, so there we did some meditation on the four Brāhmaviharas. Those are called the four immeasurables. And so those are each counters for a specific type of defilement. Mettā is the counter for hatred. It's kind of feeling of dislike of somebody. And then karuna is a counter for cruelty. So you might not necessarily hate somebody, but we can take joy in other people's harm. You know? And then mudita, or this kind of feeling of empathetic joy, that's the counter for kind of jealousy. This kind of feeling of unhappiness when somebody does well. And then this upekkā, or equanimity, in the text, that's actually described as the counter for lust, but it's also probably has a good effect in terms of people who their mind tends to get like way up there, like really passionate about something, or like way down there. You know, you kind of see people have this like very strong like passion, you know. So that's possibly also a kind of counter for that. So those are four more tools. And when we notice these kind of states arise in our mind, either kind of like hatred, cruelty, jealousy, or just kind of, getting totally upset about something we're attached to, then we can apply these things. It's kind of a resistance, So most of our meditation practice is actually like this. It's kind of going against the stream, So in other words, the stream of our mind kind of pulls us one way, kind of pulls us towards hatred. When we notice that, this is our mindfulness, kind of sati. We notice it, we kind of bring a counter to it. It's actually most of our practice, most of what it is to grow in wholesome qualities is countering. It's like it's kind of like, that's why traditionally, although I wouldn't necessarily say this to people right off the bat, but traditionally in most meditation cultures, it's kind of like a warrior knowledge. It gets described in terms of like a fight. It's a fight with the defilements, and the Buddha actually describes it in terms of battle quite often. So actually reaching the end of the path is called the supreme victory in battle. And can see this. Because if we try to stop ourselves from having hatred, we try to counter that, it's not like it's some kind of nice negotiation. It's a fight. It's like an all-out fight against our defilements. And the thing about these defilements is they're tricky. It's almost like a human opponent. We had some opponent who, in a warfare, for example, in ancient Rome, if they would, I remember there was this one time they tried to defeat this island called Syracuse. It had this really huge fortress. And so they kept trying to attack it and break down the walls of the fortress. But they had this really amazing mathematician inside the fortress in Syracuse. His name was Archimedes. And Archimedes was just this really great Greek mathematician. And he invented all these kind of counters to to most conventional weapons. So they'd like come up, it was on an island. They'd come up to the island in their ships, and he'd kind of devise all these counterweights to like sink a ship. Like this huge piece of timber would come out and like sink a ship, or like a big claw would come out and something like that, grab the ship. He devised all these counters. So the Romans figured, okay, we can't beat these people by conventional means. We'll surround the Syracuse and we'll starve them, So in other words, they created this blockade, kind of starve them. And then eventually they somehow were able to get in through the gates and open the gates, and they invaded, and they won, And our defilements are this way too, So like hatred comes up. It doesn't always just come up and with this mean face, like do what I say. Sometimes it comes up with a really friendly face. It has a million different ways to insinuate itself into our mind. Same with jealousy. Same with thoughts of harming. Same with thoughts of attachment. The number of ways that these things can wiggle their way in is just huge. So this is why we have to develop an equally broad repertoire. So it's kind of like, I remember when I was young, I used to take kind of martial arts. You kind of learn these forms. And kind of, okay, we get in there, you're a little kid, and you're like, all right, I want to fight. I want to be like the Ninja Turtles or whatever it is. And you go in there, and the first thing they teach you is, this is how you block. And you're like, okay, and twist your arms like this. Okay, and you punch and move your foot like this, and twist your arm like this when you punch. And then eventually you move up into these kind of forms where you do these very set patterns. It's kind of, okay, block, step forward, step this way back. And then you eventually have this grading. And if you do well on your grading, you keep doing well, eventually they put you into sparring, okay, where you're actually faced off against a real opponent. And one of the things you notice when you go into sparring is that basically all the things you've been taught kind of fly out the window. That's why they say in a battle, when the battle plan gets thrown out the window the first time the first shot is fired. And you're up against an opponent in a fight who can see the way you're moving. And they're trying their best to defeat you. So if you keep moving in this very predictable manner, at first it might throw them off if you have a plan, But eventually they learn what your plan is. And they counter it, So you have to have this constant aspect of ingenuity, using the basis of these techniques you've learned to try to strike back at your opponent. You also have to have this constant kind of effort. You feel exhausted fighting people. It's actually the best workout you can ever get if you go into martial. Is actually one of the best is actually being in a physical like a bout. Like either judo or taekwondo is completely exhausting. Your attention has to be totally focused on that person. And sometimes if you get into a match on the ground, it's just this pushing. like this constant pushing against each other. Sometimes it seems like it's never going to end. This kind of act of will, this kind of effort, And it's also painful, It's painful to be struck. It isn't necessarily fun, But what keeps people going in these kind of cases is kind of desire. It's kind of this desire for victory. And in the case of Taekwondo, it's the desire for the trophy. But in our life, it's the desire not to suffer, So we learn to use these various techniques with this desire, with this effort. We learn to strike back. This is why the Buddha says, having kind of made your mind like a fort, strike Mara with the Spear of Discernment, and then guard what's won without settling there. In other words, when we make a gain in a particular situation against hatred, say, usually a person who gets thrown off our guard by hatred, we make a gain. We're in a situation where we didn't get angry. We could have. It's a fight. We had to struggle not to do that. We had to use mettā. We had to endure. We had to stop. Once we make that gain, we don't rest contented there. In other words, we don't claim it as ourself, Our fighting against that is striking Mara with the Spear of Discernment, Our desire to move forward. Look, this isn't mine. I haven't attained Nibbana yet. That's not laying claim. So in this way, we keep using our meditation practice to grow more and more and more in wholesome qualities. This is where this kind of desire comes in on the path. This desire has to grow strong. It also comes from this recognition and investigation. What is it in my life that's constantly causing me to suffer? This kind of determination, I want this to stop. So when we have that, the various ways that our mind tries to strike us, we learn to counter them, strike back. So then the basis of our life, instead of going out to consume this or that, the basis of our life becomes winning in this battle. From the moment we wake up and we start to notice, where's my mind going? Actually, right when we wake up, that's the time these kind of thoughts start coming up. Whatever negative, they can come up right away, right when we wake up. So right the moment we realize we're conscious, it's onto our satipatthana. These are kind of safe places. This is why the Buddha gives this metaphor, about the monkeys. There's these areas in the Himalayas that are kind of uneven, and only monkeys go there. And there's areas that are even where both monkeys and humans go. And areas where they're even where both monkeys and humans go, there's a kind of monkey hunter. And he sets out this kind of tarball trap. And so monkeys kind of roll around, they're in the area that's even, and they see the tarball trap. They think, I'm going to grab this trap. So he grabs it with one hand. His hand gets stuck. And then he thinks, okay, I'll free that hand. And he grabs it with his other hand gets stuck. So he says, okay, I'll use my feet and free both my hands. So eventually he gets both his feet stuck in the tar trap. And then he thinks, all right, that's it. I'll get everything free by freeing it with my mouth. So he grabs onto the tar trap with his mouth, and then he's totally stuck. Snared by both his hands and his feet and his mouth. And then he lies there whimpering. And the Buddha says, and then the hunter comes along, and without letting the monkey go, he skewers him right there and goes wherever he wants. And so he says, the hunter here stands for Mara, The 5 things that the monkey, if I remember correctly, the 5 things that monkey gets caught with are 5, or actually there's 6 sense bases, but you can think of it, there are 5 khandhas anyway, You can get snared in any one of these things, As long as we have kind of desire and passion for these, we're attached to them. So we use our meditation topics in various ways to detach ourselves. But more importantly, in this kind of, to expand this metaphor, it's actually in a different sutta where he uses this metaphor. But there is this kind of range that's uneven and rocky where the hunter doesn't go. This kind of range is our satipatthana. These various meditation topics for our mind are safe places to wander. And our mind just goes wherever it wants, gets into all kind of trouble. Snare, getting stuck in kind of tar trap. So when we really get into this kind of desire, seeing where these things come from, then we learn to keep countering these things. This becomes actually the basis of our life. Kind of basis of our interaction with the world becomes our kind of satipatthana, which is why it's called a frame of reference. In other words, everything we interact with in the external world, we judge it not in terms of the world. Not in terms of am I getting richer, more, am I getting more beautiful, am I getting old? It's more like, how does this have an effect on my advancement in the Dhamma? How does this affect my satipatthana? So then when we have like breath meditation, for example, as this kind of basis the whole time, we notice when something hits our consciousness, how does it affect the breath energy in the body? We learn to manipulate this. We can do this kind of constantly throughout our day, as we're kind of going about. And when we do this constantly throughout our day, this becomes a kind of basis. When we come to sit down, that momentum is with us. It kind of carries on. So we create this kind of virtuous cycle where we can gain in wholesome qualities, build in wholesome qualities. And this is kind of where we really learn what the Buddha's teachings are. So long as they're just in books, that's where they stay, which is good. It's good to know the books well. But this is really where they are. In this kind of battle against our defilements, when we actually win. This is when we really become heirs to the Buddha's teachings. This is the real aim of meditation. It's not separate from our desire to gain in wholesome qualities in all aspects of our life. Okay, so there's maybe just one more type of meditation we can do. And
I have a question.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
In the morning you mentioned about the harmful ways of doing equanimity. Mettā, karuna, mudita and upekkā. So in equanimity, how can you just explain how it can be harmful the way we do?
Sure. So if it's cultivated too much, a person can become indifferent. Yeah. So in other words, rather than it being a helpful counter to being over-attached, a person just doesn't care. Kind of like apathetic, indifferent to whatever's going on around them, which is too far.
And the person might think that it's equanimity, but actually it's not, just couldn't care less.
It is equanimity, it's just too far.
Too far.
There's elements of equanimity in that. It's gone to a point where it's not beneficial. Yeah. Yeah. So almost everything is like that. That's why we have to be skilled. It's like learning to balance a bike. Yeah.
Like if we see somebody really suffering, we can say that it's the person's karma. At the same time, if we can help, and if we are not helping, that is, I think, it's not equanimity, right?
Yes, I mean, these are all words applied to mind states, right? So upekkā is usually the beneficial word applied to this faculty of being even towards things, wherever they arise. Its benefit is if there's something we want to change, but we can't, and it's causing us to suffer, we have upekkā.
Right.
Yeah. Its danger, its dark side, is if we become totally apathetic to everything going on around us. We don't develop in wholesome qualities then. Yeah. We can become a callous person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In the name of equanimity.
In
the name of equanimity,
yeah, sure.
we can be callous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so there's any other questions about that? It's just one more short meditation we can do. And these, there's actually many of these kind of topics in meditation, but short day today, and to do like 40 topics meditation in a day is a lot. So this is just a kind of shorthand. The kind of techniques for these ones are probably all relatively similar. And these are the kind of meditation techniques that rely on building perceptions. So most of the time in the world, we have particular perceptions that influence the way we interact with the world, and we're constantly rebuilding them. Just don't necessarily realize it. So we constantly rebuild this perception that things we like are permanent. It's something that gets rebuilt, basically, or reinforced whenever we interact with them in a particular way. And so often it's unconscious. They're kind of like, this face is my face. We look in the mirror, we think this is me. Then that's a kind of perception where we're actually we're recreating this perception of permanence around a self based around our face. Then when the face changes, people suffer. What's this kind of, oh, wait a minute, actually I've got a lot of gray hairs now. And monks only look in the mirror every so often. So sometimes I look in the mirror, I'm like, holy, where did all this come from? Got a whole patch right there. Anyways, this kind of perception of impermanence is a counter to that. When we constantly bring this up in the beginning, it can be a bit unpleasant, Because essentially we're taking things that we really love and saying, look, these things are going to end to everything that we encounter. Even houses, cars, whatever, you can counter it. You can perceive it as falling away. Perceive it in its decaying state rather than its growing state. But the benefit of this, when we do it skillfully, when we don't do it in such a way that it leads to, say, like depression, then when some impermanence touches our life, that perception's already there. You know? It's like, well, wait a minute. I already know this, you know? But it's something that has to be cultivated as a refuge, you know? So the way that we practice these various types of perception meditation, whether cultivation of impermanence, of death, of, there's cemetery contemplations, the contemplation of food, is the same way we have might have these kind of chain thoughts, just thinking about something over and over again. We turn that and make it deliberate. So this is the kind of active style of meditation, the investigative style of meditation. It requires coming at something from one direction, then the other, then the other, then the other, then below, then above. Keep trying to find various ways to drive home this perception. Keep trying to use it to counter the things that we're attached to. And then what we tend to notice is that when they're successful, certain things can happen. Sometimes our mind can kind of like separate from the object. Yeah? But this type of meditation requires a lot of energy, which is why usually what people will do is first they'll meditate on like a calming object, like one of the ones we just did. Then when their mind feels rested, they'll go out and investigate until they feel tired, which is basically when their mind starts thinking about all kinds of other stuff that they didn't want it to. Then when it starts to feel tired again, they go back to this restful type of meditation. Keep going back and forth like that. So for this one, we can do a contemplation of impermanence. So what you can do is we all had a bunch of different topics we did today. You can choose the one that felt most suitable to you, whether it was breath or whatever. Just get our minds nice and settled in that for like 30 seconds or so, and then send it out to contemplate whatever it is. Actually, all of us would have something, you know, something that we don't want to change, but that's going to change, you know, whether it's our face, our health, our relationships with people will all end at some point. Our house, our job, whatever it is, we can contemplate the impermanence of this thing that would cause us to suffer, you know? And then when our mind starts to go out too much, or if we start to feel like, or we're getting tired, we can come back to this calming object, using this as a kind of like a fort that we can secure. So we can stab Mara with the Spear of Discernment. This is this contemplation of impermanence. Okay, so we can do that for just a short bit, maybe like 7 minutes or so. And that'll be it. Okay, does anybody have any questions about contemplation of impermanence or perception meditations? Whereas if there is none, we've talked a lot today, so. Okay, yeah, sure.
How can we use meditation in our everyday life? Because sometimes it's hard to sit down for even 30 minutes, an hour just to meditate, but I want to be able to use it in everything that I do. What's the best way of doing that?
So basically, these various kind of techniques that we did, if we can form even a basis of some sitting in our normal life, like 15 minutes before sleep, 15 minutes right when we wake up, then we can learn to practice these techniques. And then these various ways of countering bad habits, when they arise in our life, then we use that technique to counter it. But the thing about it is that we have to practice it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like somebody who wants to be a warrior, right? Wants to gain victory over these things that are attacking them. They've got to have to practice sometimes too. It doesn't mean that has to be their whole life, right? But then when they go out, various things attack them, they counterpunch, right? So for example, if we're usually getting down by, whatever thought it might be, thoughts of anger, thoughts of ill will, okay, we just learned the techniques to counter those, you know? And so it's a matter of using our ingenuity, using our effort, using our endurance to try to overcome that negative quality that's pulling us down through these techniques, through the Buddha's teaching. So that's how it spreads out from the cushion into our daily life. We don't have to be sitting down to do this mentally. And also can do this in many situations where we have breaks. Like when I was in school, I used to do, it'd be hard in like a normal job, but you know, there's often times in a day when there's just like nothing happening, like waiting in a line, or you know, you're in the back of a bus. There's actually a lot of this kind of just dead time. Yeah. And that dead time can be really skillfully filled with formally practicing meditation at that time. Yeah. Yeah. So those are some ways. Yeah. Yeah.
For the impermanence meditation, when you're focusing on something that you don't want to change, I don't really understand how to, I don't know, keep the meditation, keep your focus on that.
So this is what, these ones are more, this is why often people will try to have like a good basis in keeping their mind focused on one object. Because when it becomes focused on one, it doesn't have to be. Some people like these types of meditation, their mind launches out to it right away, and that's the good thing for them to do. But if our mind is kind of used to like what we would call like chain thinking, like thinking about the color red. All of a sudden, this person who I used to be friends with used to love red. I'm not friends with them anymore. It's kind of chain thinking. Okay, no, I'm not going to think about red. I'll think about blue. The sky is blue. You know, sometimes it rains when it's it's kind of like chain thinking. So this is why we first learn to make it, or not, doesn't have to be first, but when our mind is constantly jumping, we can bring it back to this kind of object. So then, when we turn our mind to investigate impermanence, we keep coming at it through various ways. So for example, if a person really wants fame, and like their work requires them to have a lot of popularity and fame, like some kind of public speaker or boss, you know, this kind of desire for fame arises. You know, you have to have it, I guess, to do the job. Then what we learn to do is contemplate the various ways that could end, and that it will end. So one line of contemplation, look, I'm going to be retiring in 30 years or whatever. It's going to end. My fame that's associated with job will end at that time. You know? Can come at it from another line, look, I could lose this job in all these various ways. And it's kind of, then you think about the various ways in which the job could end, and this fame could end with it, you know? And you could think, look, I could lose the skills that I have that allow me to gain this fame. You think about the various ways you could lose those skills. Look, I could get brain damage, you know? I could develop Alzheimer's, you know, I could end up in a wheelchair. All these things are possibilities for me. So this fame is not something that's permanent. And this kind of permanence that's attached to the fame starts to fall away with these counter-perceptions, coming at it from multiple lines. Yeah. And then when it falls away, the suffering that happens because of it, like this conceit associated with, say, fame, falls away. So whatever it is that's causing us to suffer, learning to come at it from like several different directions. That's the kind of these perception meditation. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? All right, so I guess we can end off here for today. So yeah, main thing with meditation, it's been nice to meditate with everybody. It's kind of like, doing exercise for our mind, right? In the same way a person would go to the gym and do exercise for their body. Okay, we've just done like 4 or 5 hours of personal training, or I don't know what you call it, like gym work, you know? But then the real benefits from exercise come for several things. One is abstaining from the things that would cause our body harm, right? So even if we go to the gym a lot, but we're drinking a lot of beers, eating a lot of junk food, that time at the gym isn't all that fun, right? And this is the 5 precepts, learning to abstain from the things that make our mind kind of dirty, you know? And then there's also things when we're at the gym, if we don't do it on a consistent basis, then although we do it sometimes, we won't notice the benefits. Like going to the gym, the first time you go run on the treadmill, you're there for an hour. It's not like you leave the gym and you're like, whoa, where did all these muscles come from? You know? Actually, anybody, you do a lot of working out, sometimes you don't even notice that you're gaining in muscular strength, or a person's body is changing when a person keeps going to the gym. It's only after like 3 or 4 weeks that one time you look in the mirror like, all right, yeah, you know, got this, you know, this way to the beach. And meditation is kind of similar thing, right? So if we just do it every once in a while, it won't really serve to keep our mind healthy. It'll help. I mean, that's good to do from time to time, but it's when it's a consistent thing, done constantly, it gets integrated into our life. Like a workout routine becomes part of our week. It's something we do every week. It's part of our lifestyle. That's when these changes gradually start to take place. And it's a slow path, you know. It isn't like coming from here. If we've had something that's been really throwing us off, we go and try to apply technique, yeah, because it's going to be gone, right? It's like going to the gym, you know. Gradually we keep applying. 3-4 weeks down the line after doing this consistently, one day we look in the mirror of our minds and we're like, I'm a lot stronger. I didn't get pulled off by that thing. And this is the kind of benefit of the practice of the Buddha's teachings, the benefit of meditation. It's something we notice for ourselves, right? But only if we do it, you know? Nobody else can do that for us. The Buddha couldn't make everybody enlightened. And he was just somebody who pointed the way, you know? But the nice thing about us is it gives us a freedom, you know? Gives us a freedom that whatever it is that's pulling us down in our life, there is a counter to that. Whatever kind of suffering might arise in our life, there's a way to stop it, you know? That's the kind of nice thing. The side of it, though, is that we've got to cultivate it. We've got to do the work ourselves. So with that in mind, could possibly, if have time, take up a practice. 15 minutes in the morning, that's it. Right when one wakes up, 15 minutes at night, right before one goes to bed, of doing meditation. Integrating this into our Buddhist practice every day. No matter what happens, we can always spare 15 minutes. And if our mind's telling us not to, that's the same mind that's trying to get us to do all kinds of other bad things. Yeah?
So I have a quick question.
Yeah?
About that, your mind telling you not to do certain things.
Yeah.
I feel like this is applicable to everyone here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in certain situations you have an angel and a little devil sitting on your shoulder, right?
Mm.
And when situations arise, you know, sometimes the negative one overpowers and tells you to do a certain thing, or I'm not saying like the devil is telling you to do something, but like you know it's bad for you, whether it's you're having a bad day because something happened, and instead of trying to uplift yourself, it's easier to wallow in your sorrows and just, you know, because it's habitual for you to just be sad. How do you silence that negative self-talk? How do you overcome that negative self-talk? Because we all have that positive self-talk, but I feel like sometimes it's weaker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just when you're depressed, but it can be anything in any situation. Like, and it's hard to sit down and be like, I'll meditate now, you know, because that negative self-talk it just overpowers you know, your conscience. Like, you know that how you know, and sometimes you may know how to get out of it, but it's just easier to fall back into it.
Yeah, so that's where, when we meditate daily, it gives us this extra strength.
So that's long term, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about short term?
Yeah, it's the same things. We use these techniques. Unfortunately, there's no like a smoking gun solution
so just
to suffering.
Mindfulness, I guess. Like, do you pay attention to that negative self-talk and just, you know?
You counter it.
Okay.
So depending what it's trying to tell you to do, it's like, well, I'm not going to do that. And you can argue with it too. Sometimes it comes up with reasons.
Yeah.
Like, look, you should really have a rest right now. You deserve it, you know? Woo, that couch looks nice.
That chocolate.
You should eat that chocolate. It's like, wait a minute. I know what's going to happen if I have a rest right now. I'm not going to listen to you. And this is where endurance is a huge part of gaining in wholesome qualities. It's just that, not doing that at the beginning is very painful. And you can't see any gain immediately either. This is why this kind of quality of endurance is just constantly emphasized by the great teachers. It's because whenever we're gaining in a wholesome quality, we don't yet have the benefits of the wholesome quality, but we've got all the detriments of giving up whatever bad thing it was that we were addicted to before. you know? And so kind of the Buddhist teaching going forward in it is like that. It's like giving up a series of addictions. And that's how we practice. But the nice thing about it is that once a person gives up these addictions, they get a lot of happiness from that, you know? So it's not just this terrible, rough slog all along. Actually, it's good in the beginning. Whatever extent we eliminate these bad habits, we gain in happiness. And it's good in the middle. And to whatever extent we can cultivate the jhanas, cultivate states of concentration, we gain a lot of bliss. And it's good in the end, because if we can permanently cut these things, then we don't have anything to worry about at all. You know? So there's no part of it that isn't worth doing, even though it might not necessarily be pleasant. You know?